Today's special on-location episode of the BS Podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's our presenting sponsor since 1947. SeatGeek spent Super Bowl week helping football fans find the best Super Bowl seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed, with their revolutionary grading system and a team of ticket concierge experts that are a phone away with free advice, a phone call away with free advice. Download the SeatGeek app today. Get ready for the rest of the NBA, NHL seasons, college hoops, music, so much more, or go right to SeatGeek.com. We are also brought to you by the Ringer NBA Show. That's our NBA podcast hosted by Chris Vernon, Kevin O'Connor, Chris Ryan, Chase Serrano, or even me sometimes. We're ramping it up now that the NFL is done. Subscribe to the Ringer NBA Show and our other podcasts on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play, or wherever else you get podcasts. And we are brought to you by TheRinger.com. Go there and check out all of our written audio and video content from Super Bowl 51. I'm trying to get something done for Friday. We'll see. I got strep throat. It killed me. It ruined my brain. I'm just putting my brain back together. But fortunately, we'll be able to have my brain for this podcast because at least it's working for that. Steve Kerr coming up right after this. Here we go. All right. Once upon a time, I had a podcast on ESPN. Steve Kerr was a media member. Used to come on all the time.
Yeah.
We used to shoot the shit about hoops. I remember we did a pod once where you promised me nobody would ever win 73 games.
I did, didn't I?
You said Michael's will to win.
Yeah.
It was just never happening again. There was 12 games a year
Yeah.
that he just won by himself.
It's true.
You'd never see it again. And then years later, I'm not on ESPN anymore, and you coached a 73-win team. You won a title. Now we're in a conference room in Oakland.
In Oakland.
Oakland. Secret location in Oakland.
Yeah.
How you feeling about the team? It's been quite a year. It's year 3 for you.
First of all, I'm going to guarantee you that nobody ever wins 74 games in the NBA. Ever. There's no way. I stand by that one. If I was wrong the first time, there's no way I'm wrong this time. Yeah.
Well, can you believe you won 73?
No.
I mean, there was, how many games did you guys pull out of your ass? Like 8?
At least 5.
Yeah.
And I think about this year, like we have a better point differential this year. We're blowing more teams out, but we've lost all 3 overtime games. We're 0-3 in overtime, I think.
Yeah.
So we are, as we speak, 43-8. A year ago, I think we had 4 losses at this time.
Wow.
And we have better point differential this year. I would say the biggest thing is early in the season, we didn't have the continuity that we had last year.
Right. Well, you added one of the 22 best players of all time.
Yeah.
Just kind of threw him in there.
We did, which was an incredible blessing now. But we also lost 7 guys from last year's team. So we overhauled half of the roster. So the continuity wasn't there at the beginning of the year. It's really growing now.
Plus, you guys were evil.
We were, yeah.
To be evil has to be tough, right?
Yeah.
To just be like, man.
Yeah,
we just stand for all the wrong things. We're Darth Vader now.
Yeah, that's kind of a different role for us, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the last couple of years we were sort of the darlings. Everybody loves Steph Curry, and then so then we get KD, and now we're the villains. So it's the way it goes.
I thought you handled it, not to kiss your ass. I thought you handled it really well because you addressed it immediately. You kept joking about it. You kept joking about how you're the villains now. You're Darth Vader, and you kind of diffused it. I felt like because I think in the wrong hands that might have gone the wrong way. And teams get uptight, and you saw it happen. You were doing TNT, the first Miami LeBron year.
Yeah.
I thought it really affected those guys, and I thought it affected their whole season.
Yeah, I thought so too. And our team's nature is to be very free and loose and happy-go-lucky, and so we just thought diffusing it with humor was the best way to go. We had T-shirts made up that, super villains T-shirt,
Right.
And Steph picked up on it. He had a birthday party for his daughter at his house, and there was a big super villains sign made out of balloons, and so it's just something that is part of the narrative. I think you realize after you've been in the NBA for a long time that every year there's just different stories, different themes, and they don't have to make sense, but people are going to go with it, and it shouldn't really bother you. It's all part of it. You just roll with it, and the main thing is just to get come to practice and try to get better and have fun, and whatever people are going to say, they're going to say.
You and you were in the media, which helps. You know how the games go.
I know how the game goes.
It's boring. You
Yeah.
gotta come up with a new thing every time. Let's go backwards though, because You and I have been friends for a while, and you had a choice. You were ready to coach for a while. You had a choice basically between the Knicks and the Warriors, and you battled, and you talked to every single person you've ever met in your life to try to figure that decision out.
Right.
Maybe twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
And you end up here, and it looks like a magnificent decision.
Yeah.
And then you have a great fairy tale season, and you guys win the title. But during the finals, your back starts to bother you. And now physically you're falling apart, even as your team's winning the title.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, what do you remember of that last week? Because you were like in real pain.
Which last week?
The last week of the finals. You guys are winning the title, but you're in real pain.
Yeah. That's kind of when my back started to ache, but that was such a magical season and a magical finish, and to win the title. In my first year coach, I mean, I hadn't imagined. I knew the talent was really good, and I thought, all right, we can take the next step. The team had lost in the first round the year before to the Clippers, and I thought, all right, we can take the next step. We can get better. They were right there against the Clippers.
I went to that game 7. It was tight. It was a very important game for them.
5-point lead for the Warriors with a couple minutes to go, and so I knew this team had a lot of potential, and I thought, all right, we can take the next step. Get to the conference semis, maybe even get to the conference finals, and over the next few years, I think we'll have a chance to get really good. But it happened right away, and I think the team, the foundation was there. That was the main thing. I mean, when I came on board, the team was already great defensively. They had been the 4th-ranked defense in the league the year before, and so I saw it right away. There was continuity. The guys liked each other. There was good chemistry. And the foundation had already been built defensively. The trading for Bogut, I think Mark Jackson had the right approach in terms of let's make this a defensive-minded team. The Warriors, think about it, for 20 years, it was just try to outscore everybody. Games were wildly entertaining, but to win, you have to defend. And that's when I realized we could be pretty good, when I saw just how good our defense was right away. And then the whole thing was just developing our offense and getting more movement, getting more pace and more ball movement, more flow. And those are the things we really worked on and that we've gotten better with.
And you would put just insane amounts of time, not just thinking what kind of offense you run, but you were like banking out of bounds plays. You were preparing for this like it was like an invasion. How many out of bounds plays did you have? Like 300?
No, definitely not. Maybe 50 of them. But
50. Brad Stevens has 300. You got to step it up.
Brad's a master with that stuff. He's amazing. But no, I think my whole approach, my last 2 years at TNT, as I was preparing for coaching, was just to talk to every coach that I could, pick their brains. Jeff Van Gundy was a big help. And I watched League Pass every night anyway, because that's what I love to do, and I was preparing for my job. And every time I saw a play I liked, I would just put it in a video library, and that was my preparation.
High tech. I could tell.
Well, I had somebody do that for me. I'd send an email to my buddy who ended up coming aboard with us here with the Warriors, and I'd say, hey, 4:23 of the first quarter, Clippers play versus Boston, and he'd put in the library.
But you stole a lot from Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
He's one of the masters.
He's great.
So that 2015. Luck plays a big part of this, and you get lucky. The Clippers knock off the Spurs. I think the Spurs would have been a tough one. Mm-hmm. And then Josh Smith gets unconscious right as they're about to get knocked out of the Clippers series. I think you would have beaten the Clippers. That's a tough series, though, going against Blake and those guys.
Sure.
Then you get to the finals, just everything goes perfectly, and then at some point your back goes out. It gets worse.
Yeah.
You rupture a disc playing golf.
Yeah.
You get the surgery, and then at what point did you think, oh my God, I actually might not be able to coach?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go too much into detail on this, but I will just say to anybody out there who's having back problems, do not get surgery. Yeah. It really is. I mean, it can be successful.
Be the last resort of all time.
It should be the last resort. And, you got to rely on Mother Nature and, just rehab. And, I went to one of the top back specialists in the world, and it was supposedly a simple microdiscectomy. It's the simplest surgery they do. It wasn't like a fusion or anything like that. And what was supposed to be a simple procedure, one that I've got half a dozen friends who've all had and it's gone really well for. It did not go well for me, and so it was a tough road last year. just a couple weeks after surgery, starting to feel headaches and neck pain and dizziness. It was bizarre. And that led to me missing half the season.
Yeah.
And then I was able to come back. And fortunately, I'm doing better. But it's, I'm still in some pain, and it's no fun, getting old and feeling pain all the time.
Well, you were a pretty athletic guy still too. I mean, not just that you played, but you surfed and played golf, all that stuff, right?
And work out every day. I still work out every day, but I've been limited in what I can do, and that's hard. At 51, I should just be entering my golfing peak.
MMA, doing some maybe getting a cage.
Yeah, maybe that too. Yeah, why not? But I'm all right, and I can't complain. I got an unbelievable gig. I love living in the Bay Area. Our players and our staff are so awesome to work with. This is an amazing group of people to be with and to work with every day. It's awesome.
How involved were you when that first half of the season, even though you couldn't coach and the team's playing so well and you're not feeling good? Like, are you just sending emails? Are you on the phone? Are you texting? What are you doing?
I didn't travel with the team. I would talk to Luke Welton every day. I would talk to players. I would text players if I saw stuff. And then at home, I was coming to practices every day. And so I was taking part in practices. And so I was involved, and the players knew I was there. And Luke was just amazing, just an unbelievable assistant and great friend. And so, it all worked out. I mean, I came back halfway through the year and last year, we really just kind of picked up where we left off after winning the title. The whole thing was so smooth right from the start. We had basically the whole roster back. And so it was just a continuation.
For my book, I asked you, I had a whole chapter about after a team wins a title, what happens to them?
Yeah.
And, the disease of more versus the FU edge.
Right.
And you played on that 97 Bulls team that came back the next year and still had the edge.
Yeah.
And you were basically saying the reason we had the edge was because Michael was a complete maniac. Yeah. And so what made that Warriors after the title team? Was it because everybody was kind of discounting it? Because of the injuries on Cleveland? Like, what was the reason?
I think the disease of more was not much of a factor for us. I think we naturally have a lot of really team-oriented guys who loved winning, loved playing together. And so what really kicked in was the continuity and the confidence from winning the title. So we came out just thinking nobody can touch us. We just won the whole thing, and we got everybody back. We're going to be even better.
And we're better, yeah.
And we were better, but we couldn't finish it out, obviously. And you talked about all the things that went right for us the year before, which is dead on. Last year, things kind of went wrong in a lot of ways. Steph got hurt the very first playoff game. Yeah. Missed the first, I think, 5 or 6 playoff games that we played. And then, or he was in and out, I think. He came back during the first round, but then missed a couple more. And it was a really set up as a tough run. And then, of course, in the finals, Boga gets hurt, and Draymond gets suspended. And I'm not using this as an excuse. I'm just saying
it's all legit.
Every year, stuff like this happens, And for us, the year before, things went right. Last year, things kind of went wrong, and you got to be able to play through that and find a way. And we just weren't quite able to do that. And Cleveland they were fantastic, and they deserved to win.
I think every great team has like a window, right? You got like maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Like for the Celtics with KG and those guys, it was a 3-year run.
Right.
And then they were able to kind of squeeze 2 more years out of it. But it was really 3. And they should have won 2 titles in the 3 years. KG got hurt in 2009.
That was a killer.
2010, Perkins gets hurt in Game 6. So they end up with 1 out of 3. Yeah. I think with you guys, and I don't know what Durant does to this window, and it might be 7, 8 years, who knows? But you figure like the over/under was probably 1.5 to win titles these last 2 years.
Without KD, you mean, or like,
I'm saying these last 2.
The last 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you easily could have won 2.
Before the first title, we were not considered a championship. So if you're talking about odds, like in Vegas, I don't think anybody expected us to win the first one. But if you just look at it in retrospect, it's
this guy right here. I had a little wager on you guys.
Did you?
I really did.
Really nice. What were the odds? Do you remember?
We bet on when it was 30-1, and I was like, I like this Steve Kerr guy. He learned from the tutelage of Popovich and Phil Jackson.
And by the way, the Steph Curry guy is not bad either.
I know. Well, I was going to ask you about when you realized that there was some, he's not MJ, obviously. Nobody's MJ, but except for Tom Brady. But I want to talk to you about that. Yeah. But when did you realize Steph was there's something different?
Like magic. Not Magic Johnson. Like there's something magical.
There's an MJ, or Magic Johnson, or any of those guys. There's a piece of something in him that reminds you of guys you played with, Duncan.
Well, and I would not equate any of the skill set to those guys, but whatever it is, quote unquote, it is, he's got it, right? And you can see it. Did
you see it from the day one that season, or was there a moment during the season when it started to pop out?
I think it took a month or so.
Yeah.
He was still pretty wild in training camp. We started out 5-0, and we were averaging 22 turnovers a game at 5-0.
Right.
And it was like, this is not going to work. This is not sustainable. And I think we really had to go through an understanding of how this was going to work. We lost our next 2 games. The Spurs blew us out. I think we had like 24 turnovers and shot at home. At 24 turnovers, we shot like 54%, and we lost by 12 points. And it was the easiest thing for me to do, to walk into the practice facility the next day and hold up the box score. Go, we shot 54% at home and lost by 12 points. Basically got crushed.
That's not good.
There's one number here that has to change into his turnovers. And that was once Steph figured out that he had to take care of the ball, that 3 turnovers is fine, 6 is not, right? Those just that mentality, when that changed and he started getting super efficient rather than just explosive, then our team changed. And then the other thing that really changed us was Draymond Green. We came into the lineup. We didn't think he would start. We thought David Lee would start.
Yeah.
David had an amazing training camp, was doing great, got hurt with a hamstring injury and missed the first month of the season. We were so good. I went to David before he came back. I said, this probably isn't fair, but you're not getting your starting job back. This is how we're going to play. Draymond is too good for us. We're right where we need to be, and you're going to have to come off the bench. And to David's credit, he accepted the bench role.
That could have gone bad.
It could have.
Yeah.
It could have, but he hung in there, and he had a big role in the finals. Had a couple great games against Cleveland, and it all worked out. And then, of course, the other thing was Andre Iguodala taking a seat on the bench willingly after starting every game of his entire career.
Well, so you tapped into 2 major chemistry things there, because you asked David Lee to basically give up his job, and you asked Iguodala to come off the bench when he's making $12-13 million a year. Do you think, because of who you are and because you played and you won titles with San Antonio and Chicago, did that give you more leeway to do that than the average coach, or are those just good guys, or both?
I would say it's mostly that they're good guys. I think a lot of it was that Andre, it came at the right time of his career. Like if I had gone to him in his 5th year, he would have been like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would I, but you're in your 10th year, you've seen it all, you've made a ton of money. I think Andre was at the right time of his career to do it. He's a great guy. He's a great team guy. He wants to play the right way. And
he's probably smart too, right? He's like, that's 26 minutes a game. That sounds great.
Yeah, maybe extend his career.
Let's do it, yeah.
And he was a Bulls fan growing up.
Yeah.
He grew up in Illinois and loved the Bulls. And I think he respected the fact that I was on those teams and that I had a firsthand knowledge of how all those dynamics worked for the Bulls teams and the depth that we had and the importance of every guy.
Did he remember your vicious feud with John Stockton?
I don't think
one of the most vicious feuds in NBA history. You guys know about the John Stockton-Steve Kerr feud? If Tate and Tommy are, oh my God, you guys were like 2 pit bulls.
Yeah, we two finals.
I texted you once one summer. I was like, "What? Did you Stockton? Did you guys date the same girl in high school or something? What happened with this?"
Yeah, he was such a great player, and guarding him for 6 games, 2 years in a row in the finals, and he was dirty. I mean, he was in a good way. Like you wanted to be his teammate, but
not his opponent.
Not his opponent.
He was definitely dirty. The Utah fans get mad when I wrote that in my book. I'm like, sorry, the tape doesn't lie.
He was.
He tripped people on picks,
and I say it with perfect respect.
Yeah,
I like guys who are going to try to get away with everything they can. I want my players to do that. He was an unbelievable screen setter. He would kind of trip you, when you're bringing the ball up the floor without making it look like it, and little things like he was an unbelievable cutter. He'd throw a post feed and then grab your arm, like you're defending the play. He'd grab your arm as he cut past you to get your momentum going the other way. And then next thing you know, he's laying the ball in. You're looking at the ref like, he grabbed my arm. So much respect, right? Like he was sharp. He was one of the smartest players ever. But when you play against that time and time again, you get a little frustrated.
Now you fast forward to last year's finals, and guys are just body blowing Steph.
Yeah.
I mean, it got so physical. And it was smart, and it was exactly what the Clippers did to him. Chris Paul was the first guy that I really saw just say, I'm going to commit 40 fouls on him. And they're not, and if they don't call him right away, I'm just going to keep fouling him.
Yeah.
And then you saw that happen during the playoffs. And by the time we get to the finals, I really thought Steph was, I know he's hurt too, but I really thought he was banged up. He seems bigger this year. It seems like
he's a little bigger. Yeah. I
put on some muscle.
I thought it was more the fact that he was banged up than the physical play. The physical play you have to expect in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's always going to be. If you can't possibly call every foul in the playoffs, or the game would never get started. And it's so much more intense. We're doing the same thing. By the way, we're being physical defensively. We're trying to grab and hold when we can. But we happen to play a lot more off the ball than most teams. In fact, we're dead last in the league in number of pick and rolls. We've been like 28th, 29th, 30th the last 3 years. We play a lot more screen away, pin away. So what people complain about with us is our screening. They complained a lot with Bogut. They complain a lot with Zaza. But most teams run on-ball screen and roll, and so the away from the ball holding isn't really a problem because everyone's just spotting up. But
what do you call those
constant motion?
What do you call those things where I run toward you and then I do the quick 5-step start and I'm getting the ball? It's almost like a
It's like a slip?
Yeah, is that the slip?
You
guys have mastered that this year in ways that I don't. It's kind of unstoppable. It's not really a pick and roll. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of a fake pick and roll.
Yeah,
there's so much switching now in the NBA, and we do a ton of it ourselves. And that's the trend. You get a bunch of guys who are 6'7", and strong, and they can all guard all 5 positions. A bunch of Draymond Greens, Andre Iguodala's. If you can do that, then switching becomes a really difficult defense to attack because, every offense is designed to create an advantage for penetration, turning the corner, getting the ball into the paint. But every time you switch, if you do it well, there's nowhere to go, and the guy has to go one-on-one. And so we're seeing more and more of that. And so, you're seeing lots of teams set screens and slip screen. You're trying to deceive the defense and see if you can create an opening through a screen, through a slip of a screen.
Well, it seems like you guys have 4 different variations off of whatever might happen. And it also helps when you have 3 of the best 10 shooters in the history of the league, including the best one.
Yeah.
You have like 2 legitimate freaks on your team.
Yeah. No,
so
we have a ton of talent. We know that. We're so lucky. It's one of the reasons we've been so consistent because even on a bad night, we have a chance to win because we're loaded with talent. So the key for us is playing to our standard, trying to have a set of standards that we can try to reach every night, and then just understanding that we got a lot of playmakers. The guys who are really unsung on this team, who are critical, are Livingston, Iguodala. Last year, Bogut and Harrison Barnes were really amazing players, but didn't get a lot of respect. But it's been the depth of our weapons. Iguodala and Livingston are tremendous passers. So if we can just move the ball 4 or 5 times, we almost always have a guy who's capable of making a play at any time on the floor, and that's a real luxury to have.
There was an article about Luke Walton recently about how he was there for the 86 Celtics with Walton and Bird, my favorite.
I saw it was a great article.
The pay was really good.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing of it was he was talking about what an impact it had on him as a basketball fan. And my dad's seats were right where the Walton seats were. And all we remember was this poor lady, the Walton's ex, and these kids just jumping on her. And it was, you never would have guessed that they were going to be anything other than in jail. Like they were just these 3 maniacs. And I'm thinking, and my dad was like, did you read that article? Luke Walton's claiming he was watching basketball. These kids are like jumping off the seats and stuff. But apparently there was some osmosis. But I like that because the way you guys play reminds me, the passing's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the 97, 98 Bulls, brilliant basketball team, but didn't pass like that. I mean, it was a lot of one-on-one and ISO.
Well, we had the ultimate one-on-one player in Michael.
Yeah.
Phil's whole thing was with the triangle was to create some flow and to get everybody involved and try
some
to,
sort of circle or movement.
yeah, get the motion and the flow that creates good shots. But we didn't. We had the guys who could really make plays. Obviously, were Pippen, Jordan, and then Kukoc. And we had a good passer with Longley in the low post. And we just tried to move the ball, but ultimately Michael would take over game after game. And what we have here is a little different. We don't have the physical monster like Michael or LeBron, who's just going to literally take over a game with sheer force.
You actually do. His name's Kevin Durant. He's 7 feet tall.
But he does it with skill.
He's gigantic.
No, he's phenomenal. But he does it with skill. He doesn't do it with force.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like I think LeBron does it like as a middle linebacker.
LeBron's like, I'm going to the hole.
Yeah.
I'm getting in the rim right now.
KD does it with skill. Steph does it with skill. And it's incredible skill, but it's not like this overpowering physical strength that allows to do that.
Westbrook's with the number one on that.
Yeah,
Westbrook's like, I've got the rebound. I'm going to be going to get a layup now.
Going.
Yeah. Does anyone want to get in my way? I bet not.
Right.
Durant, you knew he was great. You went against him last year, and he was spectacular in that playoff series. I mean, it was funny because when I interviewed him, he actually, it seemed like he takes everything a tiny bit personally, which is in a good way.
Yeah.
I think that's what he does. He's always says the chip. But I was like, I've never seen you play all around basketball like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I was doing that for 8 years. And I was like, I'm not sure actually. The way he played on both ends and the way he protected the rim, and it's carried over, and it's like he's been unleashed on this team as an all around everything. Now the question is, was that always there, and he just needed to find the right team? Is it the right time of his career? Is it all of those things? What do you think it is?
It's a different team, different personnel. He's not asked to carry as much of the load offensively for obvious reasons. We've got Steph and Clay and Draymond. We got guys who can carry the team. So he's playing fewer minutes. I think he's averaging 34 for us. He was probably at 38 in OKC. I think he's at the time of his career too, where he's smarter and wiser. And I think we've pushed him. We told him, like, for 7 games last year, you were devastating against us. That this is what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And I still think he has room for improvement. I think he can be brilliant defensively, but he has his moments, and he knows this, where he loses focus and lets his guard down. And we're just trying to get him to be as consistent as possible.
So you had that Game 6 against OKC, which is on the short list for me for great NBA games. I mean, just OKC is ready to go to the finals.
Yeah,
it's happening.
Sure.
You guys are tired. You've played a ton of games over the 2 years, and Clay just has an outer body experience, which you've had. You've had games like that.
Not like that.
He had
42
I was trying to pump you up a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah,
I mean,
I had games
you
like
did shoot 55%
I did have games like that
three.
where I had 10. Hey, 4 for 4, way to go! No, this.
Well, what about in 03, the Dallas Spurs game, the playoff game?
I had 12 points.
But you were 38 years old.
Yeah,
it was an outer body
that
experience.
was my equivalent of Clay. It was it's a scale. It's relative to your ability. But that was my out of body experience. What Clay did was one of the most remarkable individual performances that anybody's ever had, considering the circumstances where we were. We were kind of dead in the water.
You were done.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was one of those games where they were between 12 and 15, 12, and it was like one more three or one more, and you were done. It was over.
Yeah. And it's not like we were running these great offensive sets to get him open shots.
Yeah.
We were trying everything. Their defense was devastating.
Yeah.
And he just started launching these, oh my God, no, yes shots, And once, the thing with Clay, I mean, once he gets a couple of them to go, he can get it off at any time. He's so big and strong. He can get that shot off any time and from anywhere. And
do you just not look at him? Because it seems like when he's having the outer body experience, everybody just stays away from him, and he just kind of looks at the floor like he's having this. I don't know, like somebody invaded his body. Almost.
Right. Well, Clay is. I think Clay and Steph you don't want them thinking too much. They are who they are because they're gunslingers.
Yeah.
And so you got to allow for some bad shots. You got to allow for some misses, and you got to just trust that, at some point they're going to get going, and they almost always do. All I try to do as a coach is, if they start taking really bad ones, just step in and remind them, hey, you got all these great teammates. If you don't have a good one, move it on, reposition. You'll get a better shot later in the possession. But I don't ever want to take away what makes them who they are. So you can't put a governor on them. You just kind of have to give a little advice here and there.
Quick break to talk about Vistaprint. Did you know you could get 500 business cards from Vistaprint.com for just $9.99 when you enter my promo code BS at checkout? It is true. Vistaprint is all about supporting small business owners. They offer tons of custom products for home and office needs like business cards, postcards, flyers, banners, apparel, invitations, whatever level of design or order support you need. It's so simple to personalize your business cards and other marketing materials and get that professional look. Customize the text, colors, backsides, and more with thousands of industry-specific templates. Upload your logo to one of Vistaprint's designs. Upload your own design. You can even upgrade to a thicker stock or add a brilliant finish like metallic, spot gloss, or raised print. Right now, get 500 custom business cards for $9.99, which is a 50% savings off regular site pricing. Just visit Vistaprint.com, design your custom business cards, and enter my code BS at checkout. That's code BS to get 500 custom business cards for only $9.99. Go to Vistaprint.com today. And quick shout out to Channel 33. That's the Ringers pop culture podcast feed with shows covering video games, celebrity culture, pro wrestling, the Oscars, and right now The Bachelor. It's also where you can find my Sports Movie Hall of Fame podcast series with Chris Ryan. Subscribe to all of our podcasts on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Back to Steve Kerr. Game 7, Cleveland. Have you watched that game since?
I've watched it probably 3 times.
3 times? Mm-hmm. See, you're like me. So was it to torture or to learn from it?
To learn from it, yeah. Okay. I mean, I watched it immediately.
20% torture?
Do we like torture?
I watched a lot of Boston losses where I'm just like, I'm watching it hoping a play is going to go different, knowing that it's not going to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, there's some of that. But mainly, it's you're trying to learn and you're trying to get better. And
what would you do differently? Anything?
I would, but I'm not gonna tell you because it's there's some personnel stuff and lineup stuff that I could have done differently, and that's not fair to say publicly. But I absolutely would have done some things differently. I think our players would tell you they probably would have done some things differently.
Is it fair to say that one of the weird outcomes of that game was everybody? Maybe it was the pressure of the moment, maybe it was the pressure of the 2 seasons together, everything. All of a sudden, you were one-on-one in the last 2 minutes, basically.
Yeah.
And it was not what you guys were. And I don't know whether it's a fluke or I don't know.
It's funny. I was talking to Bob Myers about this last night. Almost every NBA game, when it's close, it devolves into a one-on-one battle.
Yeah,
it really does. I was watching Cleveland and Washington last night. A game of the year, phenomenal game,
unbelievable.
And there was some unbelievable one-on-one play. I think what happens is it gets harder to execute down the stretch, moving the ball because there's a lot of holding and grabbing away from the ball. It's just a fact. It's not anything other than that. And the game gets tougher. The player's natural tendency is to get the ball to your best player and kind of move out of the way. And we want to get motion. We want to execute as best we can. We're at our best when the ball's moving 3 or 4 times, but there are games where it just doesn't happen. We can't get that. And you try as a coach, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you also, get to certain matchups that you like. You run something specifically more in a playoff game than you would in the regular season, where you want to go after one guy.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means you start to get less ball movement as well. So it's kind of a fine balance.
So here's my take. I'm so glad you went for the 73. I'm just of the mentality. I don't take back like the Pats when they tried to go 19-0 and they ended up not getting it in the last 2 minutes. Like, if they get it, they're immortal, you know?
Right.
And it's like you guys had already won the title. Now you had a chance to go back-to-back and do it. And I'm sure that season has to be so special for everybody, just the grind of that regular season. Mm-hmm. The crowd's coming an hour and a half before the games to watch Steph warm up and all the great moments. Like, I just can't imagine you would as a do-over be like, I wish we hadn't have done that.
I wouldn't change anything. And what I would tell you is we never felt like we chased anything. You know, we if you look at the minutes played, our guys, our top guys all were at 33, 34 minutes. Nobody even averaged 35. We had some injuries where guys were out. Andre missed a couple of weeks. Bogut missed time. But the other guys were healthy.
Yeah.
And the only thing, the only point in the season was maybe in the last couple of weeks. Like we had a back-to-back in San Antonio that was a brutal back-to-back. Like if it were this year, or if we had, if we weren't, looking at 73, maybe I would have given them a night off, But other than that,
you know what it was? The Celtics. Brad Stevens really taught the league what to do against you guys.
Beat us.
Came in.
It always comes back to Brad Stevens and the
That was
Celtics
it. That was when it turned.
No, but I think a lot of people have kind of used that narrative, like, well, maybe they shouldn't have chased. I
think that's
73.
bullshit. And
I don't think we chased anything. I really don't.
It's not what sports is about. Like, if you hadn't won a title before, I can see it. But at that point, you're going for something different.
No, we were, and I think it's important to define chase, right? Like, yes, we wanted the record. Our guys wanted it, and they were going after it. But chasing it means you're getting out of your stride, right? We didn't get out of our stride. We didn't play anybody when they were banged up. And the bottom line is, we were right there. We're up 3-1 in the finals. If we win, one of those games, nobody's talking about, the chase hurt us, obviously, but the results dictate that there's going to be the storyline. And if that's the story, then that's fine. But we don't have any regrets about the way we approached the season. That's for sure.
Were you worried about them after? Because, you haven't had.
Was I worried about who?
Just the team, the psyche.
After the Cleveland loss?
After how that was going to play out over the summer. And
No.
Yeah, didn't seem like it.
No, it's, I don't know. Sports are weird, especially when you're on the inside, when you're coaching, when you're playing. There's less hysteria than there is as a fan. Right.
Then on the internet? What are you talking about? Then on message boards?
Surprisingly, yes.
What?
Surprisingly. Who knew? But it's all very matter of fact. And one of the biggest challenges as a professional athlete these days is to avoid all that hysteria, because it can be self-fulfilling.
I would say it's a challenge for a coach.
It is. It's a huge challenge.
Hey, Klay Thompson's getting traded to the Celtics. Like, what? Where'd that come from? It's some Yahoo on some local radio station says it, and it goes.
So you got to be able to have perspective. You got to have balance. You got to, and that's part of our job as coaches, is to remind them that it's not the end of the world. It's, we wanted to win desperately. We didn't win. It didn't happen. It happened the year before. Like, it's going to, we just want to keep giving ourselves a shot year after year and see what happens, but put ourselves in the best position possible. I don't think any of our players walked away from last year going, God, we should have done this. We should have done that. My life's, forever changed. It's like we lost a game. It sucks. You move on. You go home. You kiss your wife and your kids, and you go play golf. Go do something fun. You come back the next year. You give it another shot. You got to avoid all the hysteria that goes along with it.
Plus, you knew Durant was coming. He told you after
That's
Game
right.
7. He's like, "Don't worry, guys.
It was after Game 4.
I got this."
By the way, I was kidding. That's not tampering.
Yeah. I will say this though, and you know me, I try not to get caught up in whatever the narrative du jour is. Around Christmas, I did start to wonder about the Durant Curry thing, and I don't say it was an issue.
Yeah.
But it did feel like Curry was trying so hard to let Durant have his moment offensively. Yeah. And you have these two guys, like I've been messing around redoing my pyramid just for fun. I can't even believe how high Durant is. It's like, it's only been 9 years, I think, for him. But you think, like, is he better than Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, all these guys? Like, it's starting to be a conversation, right?
Yeah.
The guy averaged 30 a game when he was in his third year. But you just have him and Curry in the same team. And the history of basketball says it's really hard when you have two unbelievable offensive players on one team, how the give and take goes. And I think you saw it in December. Now it seems like you're in a better spot.
We're in a great spot. And it's mostly Steph has changed. KD has been really consistent all year long.
So what did Curry change?
he realized he could be aggressive and shoot 25 times and it wasn't going to affect KD. I think early in the season he felt like, man, I gotta get this guy involved. I got to get him the ball. But what makes KD so unique is that he doesn't need the ball.
Yeah.
He doesn't even need a volume of field goal attempts. He's had multiple games this year where he's had 12 shots and 25 points. It's incredible, his efficiency. And his mentality on top of that, he doesn't care that he doesn't have to be the alpha, he doesn't have to get 20 shots. He doesn't care. I think Steph realized that to the point where our team even realized that when Steph just is aggressive and is shooting his 30-footers in transition and going nuts, that's when we are at our best. KD not only appreciates it, but enjoys it and feeds off of that.
Yeah.
And you never worry about Clay. Clay's going to get his shots up.
Leave him alone.
And I think and Draymond has adapted really well to a slightly different role. And I think Steph finally realized, oh, wait a second, I can still do all this, and all those guys are going to be fine. And our team has grown comfortable with it. And our defense has gotten better too, which plays a role because now you get stops. Now Steph's more likely to get a transition three and the house comes down. So I think those things together kind of happened at the same time, and we've gotten a lot better over the last 6 weeks.
You know what else helps? That you can have Kevin Durant or Stephen Curry on the floor for 48 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Just pick and them together separately.
That's the
it's
beauty.
really helpful to have that.
It's amazing how much better you become as a coach when you have really, really good players.
How many
I don't
kids
know how
do you
that
have?
works. What's that?
How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
Is Draymond harder than all 3 kids combined?
He was last year.
Yeah.
He's easy this year.
He's easy this year.
Man.
Durant? Did Durant help? Why is he easier?
I think a number of things. I think Draymond is, first of all, somebody who is extremely motivated to get better.
Yeah.
And he talked over the summer about he wanted to take the next step as a player, as a person, and that meant kind of, reining himself in. He talked about it publicly, and he's done that. He's become much more of a partner in coaching this team this year.
That sounds helpful.
Yeah, he's the rest of the guys have all been that way for the last couple of years. Andre's a coach on the floor. Sean Livingston, very stoic and smart. And Draymond has always been the engine, but the emotional guy who could get a little out of control. And this year,
but I mean, you did play on the Jailblazers, so you've seen emotion at its worst.
Seen that, yeah,
at its worst level. Draymond's a walk in the park.
What a great experience that was. That was awesome. That might have been the most fun year I've ever had in the NBA, just to see the dysfunction. I'd never seen it anywhere.
Why
else.
didn't you keep a journal? That would have been the best book. You kept a journal?
I think so. I think I've got it.
That would be the best book.
Right?
That would be the breaks of the game of this generation. So you think Draymond's in a better place?
He's in a much better place. He's grown a lot.
You sound very confident. Sounds like you like your team.
I love our team, and it doesn't guarantee anything, but we have great chemistry.
Would you say you were this confident in December?
No, because I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
You never know what you have until you see it, and but the combination of KD just fitting in so seamlessly, Steph sort of remembering who he is, and Draymond's maturity, and then I think adding Zaza and David West has been quietly really important for us. They're both really good, strong leaders. I think David in particular has been great for Draymond. Draymond has so much respect for David.
Yeah.
David could run for office. And actually, that's probably the wrong analogy. David probably wouldn't go into politics because of all the BS that's in politics. David is a tremendous human being, incredibly smart, genuinely wants to help people. So wait, he can't go into politics.
Right.
He got to go somewhere else. He could be like the greatest community leader. He could do anything he wants. He is smart as a whip. He's tough. He's fair. He could be an incredible coach. He's intellectual. He follows politics. He follows history. He doesn't mince his words, but he's not a blowhard. He's he listens. I mean, this guy has been fantastic for our team.
I told you I didn't want to talk about politics because you've said a ton already, and I don't think
maybe
there's
too much.
Well, probably. But the one thing I did want to ask you about is just the NBA's position right now and how it's changed since you played, and how intelligent the league is now.
Yeah.
And socially aware, and
Yeah.
like you look at how sports has played into everything that's going on in this country the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think by far the NBA and its players and its coaches and the stuff, like things you and Popovich said and things Adam Silver has done, it's by far the best league for just being aware and caring and giving a shit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use the word liberal, just I would say just educated and thoughtful.
I'm glad you didn't use the word liberal.
Yeah, because I don't think everyone's.
It takes on a connotation.
Well, and also there's a lot of foreign players in the league too.
Right.
You know, people come from all kinds of backgrounds. It's this melting pot of the
agree.
world, and
it has, to me, it has nothing to do with being liberal or conservative. It has to do with being compassionate and fair.
Yeah.
And I think Adam Silver has been amazing, leading the charge in terms of promoting equality. We have such the perfect demographic to do it. As you said, we got over 100 foreign players from all over the world. We have this melting pot in this league. And the players have been great in terms of community service over the years. I see our guys doing a ton of stuff, just like players are doing all over the league, not just for promotional value and the camera, but genuinely good work. I mean, I've been with Steph at hospitals without any media with kids, and you can't even believe the effect he has on these kids. And so I think our league understands the power that we have. Our players understand the power, and they're using it to promote these things that are critical.
But how do you explain the maturity of the players and the wherewithal that they have? Especially, there's so many ways to get in trouble now with social media.
Yeah, it's true. It's
just
true.
so many. Like, imagine if they had Twitter in the mid '90s with all the guys that were in the league back then.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why these guys are so so
Here's-
thoughtful about it.
Yeah, here's what I would say: that I think the times call for thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
For most of you're about 50, right? How old are you?
47.
47.
Jesus.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's all
51. All right. So for me, my earliest memories, kind of from a social awareness standpoint, were the Vietnam protests in the early 70s. It was a tail end of Vietnam. I remember like the hippie generation, everybody complaining about war, anti-war protesters, and then we went into this basically like a 30-year run of peace, right? Vietnam ends, and all the way up until the Iraq War, we basically have, there's the Cold War, but that ends when the Soviet Union breaks apart. And we had this incredible era of peace, and the social media. I mean, the pop culture reflects that, right? Think about the music in the '80s, and the '70s music was all anti-war and drugs, and so we basically missed most of that until right now. And now you're seeing this change where people are rallying and protesting because there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
We don't have this peace and prosperity. We all of a sudden have this really dangerous, scary time in the world. And I think people see that. And so I think our players see that and feel it. And it's almost like there's a call to duty to speak up, and I think our players are responding.
And I wonder if it's been, I would say, 15 years now where you've seen, to me, LeBron never gets enough credit for just how well he's handled himself.
I agree.
Guy's never been in trouble in his life. I love that he said that to Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he came off as a little sensitive, but I love that he said to Barkley, "Hey man, I've never been in trouble.
Right.
All I've done is played hard, take care of my body, and represented every team I've had." And he's right. And I wonder if you have enough veterans now, and those guys teach the next group, and then that group rises up, and now they're like Iguodala's age, and now they're teaching the Durant group, and then those guys are in their prime. Now they're with the Ian Clark group,
right?
And this just becomes how the league goes, and these guys just passing it down.
I think that's a good way to look at it. I think our leaders within the league, the best players, the top coaches, Adam Silver. There's this great leadership that's happened kind of organically from within as the league has grown in popularity and strength, and it's all tied together. I mean, the last 10 years has been a boon for the NBA. The product is great. The best players have been great. A lot of great storylines, and it just so happens you got a bunch of guys who are really good people who are in these limelight roles where people are watching and listening.
The product's great, and yet I don't want to get to the point where teams are shooting 73s a game.
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah.
And I know the math makes sense, and I know we're in a math era and a win probability era and all this crap, but the Celtics have broken their own franchise record for threes in a game, I think 10 different times already this year. And at some point, you're going to go in a playoff series, and you'll probably play Houston at some point.
Right.
And they're going to shoot 73s a game, trying to just game
Yeah.
the math on you.
Yeah.
And it's like, does that mean the best team won, or is this just poker where a team kept just pushing their chips to the table, hoping they got lucky on the last card? I don't know. I don't like this.
I don't know if you saw this the other night, but the Knicks 1988 team was honored at the Garden.
The Patino team, yeah.
The Patino team, they were called like the Bomb Squad or something. And it was great. They had all the guys out there who were shooting threes, Mark Jackson and Rod Strickland and Gerald Wilkins, and they all get the ovation. And I saw the stat the next day that Steph Curry last year made more threes than that entire team. And they were the Bomb Squad. So, yeah, the game has changed so dramatically.
You had Clay and Steph together shooting like 18 threes a game and making like 8.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like Larry Bird, I think, in 86, when I would have sworn he made 700 threes and he made like 82.
What's amazing is I was a Laker fan growing up when you were a Celtics fan. So you think about those iconic matchups, tremendous basketball. And every once in a while you'll see classic sports. You can catch one of those games. You watch the game, you watch those games, and it's so different. The circumference of the floor, like where all the players were, it was like this tiny circle that revolved that didn't really go outside the top of the key.
Yeah.
And you watch a game today, and the guys on the perimeter are spaced 10 to 12 feet further out. So back then it was post-ups. It was kind of constant movement and cutting and screening. And now it's high screen and roll with 5 3-point shooters spread around the floor.
And so the fast breaks, too. The fast breaks now, they just
you
go
run
to the corners.
3-point line. Yeah. And
I had the same reaction. I watched one of those games, and it was like watching hockey when one of the teams has the power play. And everybody's just crowding the net trying to get as close as possible.
Exactly.
Dennis Johnson's open from 18 feet. Nowadays, like that guy, he would be 28 feet away, right?
Yeah, so defenses have had to become much more sophisticated. The rules have changed too, which is a big deal. The old illegal defense rule was so much different.
What does Jordan do now? Does he shoot more threes?
Probably.
Let's put him in a time machine, and he comes in now.
Yeah,
he shoots like 9 threes a game.
To me, this is why when you hear like Barkley's argument that guys don't go into the post enough anymore, or whatever. Any of the old guys talking about in the old days, we wouldn't do that. The fact that you can zone up the strong side now defensively before the ball is thrown into the post, you can basically discourage any post-up play.
Right.
But you double team before the guy even gets the ball. Well, it's tough to throw it in there. So now that means the other team's got to put 3-point shooters on the other side of the floor to space you out, so you can't do that. So the game has changed. So I think Michael would have shot a lot more threes. He would have practiced a lot more threes. And he would have adapted. He also would have been fouled every play because now a hand check is a foul on the ball. So he would have probably had to run a lot more screen and roll and ISO stuff. But it's a different game.
I think him and Pippen both would have had over 10 rebounds a game. Because one of the things I've noticed this year is just because there are no big guys out there anymore.
Yeah.
Westbrook,
a lot of long
rebounds on the threes. A lot of like guards crashing on coming in.
Right.
And Westbrook, the triple-double, would be semi-amazing if he got it, but I still think the way the game's played now.
Yeah, it's different.
It's just different. The guards, he's not going against McHale and Parrish and these guys.
My whole thing is, as a coach, I just want open shots. I don't keep it.
Right.
I don't keep track of how many threes I just want open shots. And if we have 20 straight open twos, I just want to take 20 twos. That's fine.
That makes you happy.
I'm not into the math stuff, but I understand it, and we have great 3-point shooters, and if we should space the floor and move and take a bunch of them, it makes perfect sense.
I have a really important question for you. Because the Super Bowl just happened.
Yeah, I noticed. Did you watch?
I happened to watch.
Oh, really?
Never gave up because I had Tom Brady on my team. So a lot of the stuff that came out of that game, especially from the teammates, were like, Tom wouldn't let us lose. We have Tom Brady on my team. No way I'm quitting. You looked in his eye, and it was a lot of like the Jordan stuff from 20 years ago. Did it remind you of the Jordan stuff?
I didn't really think of it during the game, but I think we absolutely had that exact feeling that Michael's on our team, we're going to win. It was that he was that dominant. I saw some of the quotes from Patriots guys. It sounds like they have the same level of confidence in Brady.
Well, right after the game, LeGarrette Blount goes to Belichick and Brady, and he's like, "You're the best coach ever, and you're the best fucking player ever." And I had a flashback because after the Utah game, when Jordan had the layup, the steal, and then the last shot, you came up to him.
I did.
And you're like, "You're the best fucking player ever." And they have to bleep it on the ESPN Classic.
I am LeGarrette Blount.
You're LeGarrette Blount.
Yes. He and I
yet
share
again,
something.
you guys are compared.
I love it.
But it reminded me of the thing, and it's just like, I don't know. I feel like that was his Utah moment.
Yeah. I think that something happens with guys when they break through and win. Maybe not one time, but they win a couple times. They're in the spotlight. They become much more comfortable in the clutch.
Yeah.
Once they've done it a couple times, and I think that's where. And it's almost like, what do I have to lose, right? House money, however you want to put it. And that's what I saw with Brady. Like his legacy was sealed anyway.
Yeah.
Right? If that had been his first Super Bowl, I'm not sure he would have been able to get into the zone like he did. But that's what is really elusive for a lot of great players. Can you get to the point where your talent and your mindset can blend together and you can eliminate all the hysteria from social media and the fans and the overwhelming nature of what you're doing? Can you eliminate all that stuff and just play and go back to like when you were a 10-year-old kid where you just play for the beauty and the joy of it? That's what it's about. And when you see people do it at the very highest level, like Jordan did, like Brady did, it's like this different level of consciousness that is so awesome to watch.
Is it fair to say LeBron was 90% there but not 100% last year? Like, I still feel like he has one more notch he can go. I know that's a tough question for you to answer.
I mean, I never really like to talk
you're
about
going against him.
Other guys, but I have.
As a basketball fan, can I say that I feel like he has one more notch left? You can just nod.
You can say whatever.
I'll say it. Yeah, I'll say whatever. Did you feel when you were going against him these last 2 years? Is he just too different than Jordan as a player that it's hard for you to compare?
Yeah, and, even LeBron says that he's not Michael, and he's right. They're very, very different players. The similarity is just like the ability to take over a game with sheer force,
athleticism.
Yeah. But I don't see the same style. It's very, very different. In terms of the way they attack and all that. But obviously,
you can't talk about LeBron. Who's your favorite unicorn?
Love Porzingis. He's. I just got through saying, I don't like to talk about other players, but I think it's
fair.
different,
You're
right?
a
This
fan.
is just
this is Steve the fan.
Yeah. He's. I love watching him. I mean, just the length, the sheer length combined with shooting ability. But you're seeing more and more of these guys now because of the way the game has changed and the way players have changed. Even like Towns, Towns out there shooting threes. He can post up.
I was watching JaVale McGee shoot threes at your shoot around and making them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that one. I think there's this whole generation of players, even at the college level, that, these 7-foot guys who 20 years ago would have been told by their coaches, go down to the block and practice your jump hook. They're now out practicing their dribbling and their shooting. So they're way more skilled.
Yeah.
But in general, they're also less proficient in the low post. So that's one of the reasons, too, that the game has spread out so much.
It's one thing I like about Al Horford, who I think you would have loved to coach. Just smart guy, right place, right spot all the time. But occasionally he'll go down and he'll do a nice little jump hook in somebody's face from 5 feet. You don't see it anymore. It's like this lost art.
Yeah. And
wait, last thing I got to ask you about the Chargers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
What a blow.
Did you see it coming?
Yeah. I mean, I've lived in San Diego the last 12 years. That's been our family home. I grew up in L.A. as a Rams fan.
Okay.
So the Rams leave for St. Louis 20 years ago, whatever it was.
So you're just an orphan now.
I'm an orphan, yeah. So I've seen this, and I didn't really care about the Rams while they were in St. Louis. I'm kind of happy they're back in L.A. I think they can recapture the fan base because there's a generation that remembers them fondly, back in the day with Lawrence McCutcheon and Harold Jackson.
Right.
And, I remember those guys were awesome. But there's a connection. The Chargers spent 1 year in L.A. This makes no sense. And it's devastating for San Diego.
I was going to say, what do you think? What is San Diego now without the Chargers? I mean, other than the
It's
nicest
sad.
place to live in America.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
a place that
people
nobody
will
in
move
San
on.
Diego. Yeah.
People will move on.
I would say it's like Fight Club. Nobody from San Diego wants anybody else to even know about San Diego.
No. I'm really naive with this stuff.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it's like, okay, if you can't get the stadium built, the city won't build it. How about just saying, okay, I'm going to sell a portion of the team to somebody who promises to build their own stadium and keep it in San Diego. Let's
and then
try
I'll keep a piece. Yeah,
right?
I'll get the
and I'll keep a
majority
piece.
stake. Yeah.
Now, and that's where I'm naive. There's an ego thing that goes in with sports ownership.
Yeah.
But to me, I think an owner owes it to the community to keep the team there at whatever cost. And if it means selling your majority share, keeping a minority share, you still get the suite. But the problem is you don't get the camera shots. You don't get the ego stuff. And that's what's a killer is I just feel like whether it's the Sonics or the Chargers, especially these teams that have such a rich history and tradition and a connection with the community, when they get ripped out of the community, it's brutal.
Do you worry about that happening at all with the Warriors when they leave Oakland? Because I know it's 20 miles away or 50 miles. 12 miles. Yeah.
I feel bad for the people of Oakland.
Yeah.
But we're not leaving the Bay Area.
You're
we
down
are
the road.
the Bay Area's team. We really are. We get fans from all over the Bay. I think it's a necessary move to advance our organization. It's going to improve our standing. It's going to improve our revenue. But we're still right here in the Bay. And, I think, to go to a game, if you're living in the East Bay, you just, you get on the BART and it's not that big a deal. So I don't equate this at all with a team, packing up and leaving. We're still right here.
Okay.
And I may not be here by the way, so who the hell cares? But.
Well, you have the TV cushion. It's the best. You have like the least amount of pressure of any coach because you can immediately go back to being an awesome TV person. You were great.
Well, thanks.
I really miss you on
Thank
games.
you.
But you realize that
Thank
that
you.
was a big loss for basketball fans.
Thank you. I loved it. I had so much fun. I did 8 years with Turner, and
then you had the fight with Marv, and they covered
and then
that
it all
up.
just fell apart from there.
It was bad. Pushed him out of the car.
I love it.
I mean, especially like you would have been great these last 2 seasons because the league is so much. Like you mentioned yesterday, the Cavs Wizards. Like every night there's a great game. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's 20. Like Isaiah Thomas, what he's doing now in Boston.
Amazing.
It's not even a top 10
doing.
story, and every night he's getting 40.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's so much great talent in the league right now, and but I love coaching. I really do. I want to coach for a long time.
Good.
And I hope I'm able to, but I'm also well aware of how the league works and things can change. But we have a great thing here. I love working with Bob Myers and Joe Lacob, and we've got a really strong, stable organization. So hopefully we can all be together for a long time.
When do we see you start just putting your kids on the bench as assistant coaches? That's the last stage for you, right?
That's
You win 3 more titles, and then all of a sudden,
I think there's
Nick's your lead assistant.
Yeah, there's a 3-title minimum to add a family member to the bench. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Steve Kerr, it was a pleasure.
Thanks,
I missed doing these with you.
I know. This is fun.
Yeah, this is
Enjoyed
fun.
it.
Thank you. All right, thanks so much to SeatGeek. Thanks to Vistaprint. Personalize your business cards and other marketing materials and get that professional look. Right now, get 500 custom business cards for $9.99, which is a 50% savings over regular site pricing. Just visit Vistaprint.com. Design your custom business cards and enter my code BS at checkout. That happens to be my initials. That's code BS to get 500 custom business cards for only $9.99. Go to Vistaprint.com today. Don't forget about the Ringer NBA show. Things are heating up. Don't forget about the Ringer NFL show because we have Lombardi and Mays. They're going to do one giant nerdy breakdown of Super Bowl 51 this week. And theringer.com. Still plugging away. We love February. February is where it gets weird. Basketball heats up. Pop culture, Oscars, Grammys, spring training. WrestleMania is coming. Lots of good stuff. Check out theringer.com. Thanks so much to Steve Kerr, and thanks so much for the Warriors for helping us set this up. And we'll be back to you on Friday with another BS podcast. Until then.